All right, let's talk about the prototype. As you know, one of the requirements for the project is that you create an application around an API that is of your choice. Right? It could be anything about restaurants, sports, weather, stocks, movies, songs, whatever you choose. Right? So it's up to you and your team to choose your favorite domain and then build an application around that API. You should identify a couple of use cases that your audience will be using this API for. Typically, they'll be able to search the API, be able to either bookmark it or somehow relate it to other pieces of information from that user. I'm going to demonstrate of what this might entail, of what the prototype might look like, and then feel free to use any of the source code that I'll be making available, and then you would then extend this prototype to perhaps an actual application. Okay, I'm going to be using this open source API called OMDB API. It's an application that allows you to search information about movies, TV series, and whatnot. It allows you to find out what the cast was, the plot, any posters, a couple of reviews here and there, and there is a free version. I'm actually using a paid version that just gives me a couple more things beyond what the free version does. Most of these APIs, you have to apply for them, and they send you some private key that you have to then submit every time you do a query to these APIs. I'm going to be using my key. Please don't use my key. Apply for your own key if you want to use this API. And the way it works is that you use their URL, OMDB API. You provide the key that they send you, and then you can query. You can pass it all sorts of parameters asking for information. You can, if you know a valid IMDb ID, IMDb being the Internet Movie Database ID, you can provide it as a parameter, I equal, and then the ID. And then you can retrieve information about that specific movie. You can ask for plot. You can ask for different things that are part of the response, where you can provide the type that you want, whether a movie, a series, an episode, whether you want the plot. Plot typically will entail more data, more information that you want to query for. You can also do an open search where you can provide either a title or an actor, and you can provide that as the S parameter. Usually, I use it typically for providing the title of the movie, and then it comes back with an array of all the movies or series that match that particular criteria. Okay. Here I have an example of the API being used. So in this case, I know the IMDb ID for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I've provided it. Here's the IMDb, and if you provide that in the query, I equal the IMDb, it comes back with this specific movie. You can look at the query. If I make this, so you can see this is the ID right here, OMDB API. Query I equal the ID of the movie, and then the key that I am paying for. I can be a little more general, and I can ask for an open-ended question like the S. It's a search string, and the search string will be matched against a plot, will be matched against an actor, against a title of a movie or TV series. And if you say S equal Batman, right, it comes back with an array of all the movies that match that title. The schema or the structure of the data that comes back has a specific organization, right? It's a JSON object that has a couple of top-level objects. The first object is the search result that contains an array of movies that match my criteria. It also tells me that the response was successful and that there are a total of 366 items, including movies, series, and whatnot that match my criteria, of which the search array only includes the first 10, right? The first 10, and there's additional query parameters that you can provide so that you can iterate over all 366 results. You can say, give me the second page and the third page and the fourth page, right? And you can say how many items you want per page. Here I'm looking at the first page, the first 10 items of that page. Make sense? That's the default. For each movie, the data contains the title, the year, the IMDb ID, the type of whether it's a movie or a series. Also a poster that URL that points to some imagery for that particular movie, right? That you can use maybe for a thumbnail or if you want to bookmark it somewhere. And notice that this information is basically the same structure for all the items, right? All the movies. It's also fairly summary, right? It's kind of summary information. It doesn't have things such as the plot. It doesn't have things such as the cast or the director or where they did this, any rating information, none of that, right? So it's very, very high level summary. If you want more information, you can grab the ID of that item and you can provide it here as part of the second query, where you can say, you know, I equal and then the IMDb. If you do that, then you get much more information about that specific movie, right, or specific domain object. You know, again the title, again the year, but now you get ratings, you get how long the movie is, the genre, the director, who the writers are, also the cast, the main cast actors, a little longer plot. You can ask for an even longer plot if this is too short. Also a couple of the same poster. You can ask for more posters. Also rating information from various rating sites such as the IMDb gave it an 8.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 84. Metametric gave it a 70 out of 100. And you can even ask for even more details, right? But I think this is enough detail for our purposes. For the prototype, this is plenty. Okay. So the intent of the prototype is for you to become familiar with these kinds of APIs, whatever API you choose, that allows you to implement some of the more common use cases, right? I want to be able to do an open search for whatever information I want about restaurants or events happening around me, or football games or cricket or recipes or whatever it is that you choose for your own particular project. Yes, you need to be able to do an open-ended search, and it comes back with some array or collection of items that match that criteria. Yes. However you do that query, that's up to you. Then once you get back a response of the collection that matches your criteria, you should be able to then navigate to a specific details of one of those items. Yes, where you can do another query and retrieve information about that particular sport, that particular game last night, about that particular steps to reproduce that recipe, whatever it is. Okay, or more information about events. It's you'll build an application around that, right? For instance, people should be able to just peruse through the information of the application that you built, and they should be able to maybe bookmark a particular movie that they like, or maybe review a particular movie, or follow, or somehow store that information in some information in their own database. Okay. All right. So let's work on a prototype to interact with this specific API.